Well, here we are once again for another episode of looking at various random and obscure cars from the world of Super GT. And we'll begin by kind of going back to where we ended up the previous episode, with a Corvette. That time it was a C4 Corvette, whilst this time is the C6, and it competed in 2005, so this one is a bit more up to date, shall we say. It was campaigned by A&S Racing, who in the same year ran an entirely different car in the GT300 class, in the form of the Mosler MT900R. Now unfortunately I can't find a huge amount of information about this car. It did run with a 6-litre Chevrolet V8, but other than that I can't find any other technical details about this car. However, it did have a rather strange competition history. In 2005, it retired from the first few races, didn't start the next two, got 22nd at Motegi before a DNF in the following race would bring this car's campaign to an end, with 2 rounds still left on the season. We wouldn't end up seeing the Corvette in 2006. However, the A&S Racing team would attempt to bring that car back for select rounds of 2008. Whether the Corvette had had any updates since it last competed, I don't know. However, in the 3 rounds it attempted to enter, it would fail to qualify for all 3 of them. That would be the last time we'd see that particular Corvette on a racetrack during a Super GT race. Oh, and whilst I can't seem to find much more information about this particular piece of information beyond the 2008 Super GT season Wikipedia page, it says that during the Suzuka 1000 km race, a driver that was entered into that event, driving that Corvette, was a guy named Takayuki Matsumoto, who's apparently won medals at the Asian Games in the men's sport shooting competition. Now this isn't the last time we'd see a Corvette race in Super GT. The FIA GT3 spec Callaway built C6 Corvette raced in the series from 2011 to 2013, and we even had the Callaway built C7 Corvette in a one-off entry in 2019. Most of the cars I've showed you in this mini-series have all been based on cars that the public can/could buy, the exception being the ASL Arta Garaya, which was close to production but ended up with only prototypes being built. The thing is though, Super GT cars are meant to be based on production cars, and in the GT500 class, cars were meant to be front-engined and rear-wheel drive, which in 2009 Honda didn't have, because the NSXs that were run in that category were rear-wheel drive but mid-engined, and they were only allowed to enter that year as an exemption. For 2010, Honda would be entering a new vehicle for the series that complied with the front-engined, rear-drive regulation. But there was an issue. The production car that they were hoping to build their race car upon had to be cancelled before the car could be put on sale, due to the global financial crisis that was going on around that time. That car being the next generation of NSX, which would have been powered by a V10 of some sort. However, whilst the car ended up being cancelled, because the car was production ready, they were allowed to enter. In the race car that would end up being called the Honda HSV-010 GT, it would end up being powered by a 3.4 litre V8 engine, based on the company's Formula Nippon engine, or Super Formula as the series is known nowadays, rather than the V10 that was meant to be put in the road car. By the way, for those who may be wondering, HSV isn't referring to the HSV that you may have seen in the Australian V8 supercars, which stood for Holden Special Vehicles, but HSV for this car stands for Honda Sports Velocity. When this car was brought into racing action, it hit the ground running, winning the Teams and Drivers' Championship in 2010. However, despite that early title success, in the 3 more years it competed in, ending in the 2013 campaign, it would earn no more titles, despite the car earning 7 more race wins in that time. The car would also be driven by a few recognisable names, modern day endurance icons such as Loic Duval and Frederick Makowiecki, former IndyCar drivers Hideki Muto and Kazuki Matsura, and ex-F1 drivers Ralph Furman and Yuji Ide. The HSV-010 GT would be replaced for the 2014 season by the NSX Concept GT for the GT500 class, as the regulations for that class would be changed for that year. We're now going back to a machine that was designed by APR, the team that created the GT300 Prius, that had such a large and loyal following. Well, before the Prius racing vehicle was created, APR had been racing with a slightly more conventional Super GT car, with a GT300 Toyota MR2, also known as the Toyota MRS in some places. But in between the MR2 and Prius stints, another Toyota racing machine was created, this one leaning more on the side of the Prius. The Corolla, one of the most popular cars and highest selling cars in the world, had turned from a run-of-the-mill family saloon / sedan car into a low-slung supercar destroyer with a massive spoiler, huge splitter, and enormous wheel arches. And I just love how the idea of this car came in the first place. Effectively, the team's chief engineer, along with team manager, said that they were using the Corolla on the public road, liked how it was handling, and thought of the idea of somehow making a race car out of it. It had a water-cooled, naturally aspirated 3.5 litre V6 engine, but the engine wasn't where it usually is located in the road car, as this was a mid-engine car, because of course it had to be, and it was making its racing debut in 2009, which, as we mentioned with the Honda just earlier, was during a financial crisis. But still, this team decided, no, we will make a family 4-door car become a car to rival the likes of Porsche, Ferrari, Lexus and Lamborghini on the racetrack. As far as its track performances were concerned for this 2-car effort, during the first season, they never had a standout finish, but did score regular points, which isn't bad at all. For 2010, both cars earned at least one podium, and one of them would also collect a win too. For the car's final year though, in 2011, just a single podium was achieved with one of the cars, until APR turned their attention onto their next project with the Prius. But still, this car being able to be on the same pace as cars from some of the most exotic brands in the world is more than can be said of most Toyota Corollas. Next up, we have another slightly strange Porsche being entered. Now, we had the 968 in the previous episode, but this time we have a Porsche that competed when the car was fairly new, in the form of the Boxster, that competed in the year 2000 for the MTCI racing team in the JGTC. This Boxster though was slightly different to the regular convertible 2-seater sports car that you could buy at the time. And no, I'm not just talking about its aerodynamic differences, but by how it also had the Porsche's flat 6 engine squeezed into it somehow. We wouldn't see it compete into 2001. We did though get to see the Boxster return in 2005 with Arctec Motorsports, albeit it was the slightly updated version. This car did have a more successful time of it. The team's Boxster effort ran from 2005 to 2009, with 2006 probably being its best year, with a couple of podiums and regular top 10s through the year. They even ran 2 Boxsters on some occasions. Whilst the Arctec Motorsports effort ended in 2009 with the Boxster, it would return for an almost full-time schedule during the 2010 season with the Bomex Rosso team, but unfortunately didn't have a huge amount of success. 14th was its best finishing result. Now, whilst this car is a cool thing to see get turned into a GT300 machine, the thing that confuses me is that given its better base aerodynamic properties, wouldn't it have been worth trying out to see where the Boxster's hardtop cousin, the Cayman, would have been a decent choice for that class? Oh no, maybe there's just something about that car that doesn't make for a good GT300 car, seeing as so far a Cayman hasn't yet become a Super GT car. But either way, with that, we'll end this episode here. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then I'd be incredibly appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons. However, with that being said, until next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.